The last couple of weeks have been the biggest challenge to our winter garden so far. Lows have hovered around 0 degrees Fahrenheit and it's been as cold as -8. Right now, even though it's sunny and close to midday, it's only 6 degrees Fahrenheit. So, after 2 weeks of bitter cold, let's go and look to see how our winter crops are doing inside the hoop house. Even though it's only 6 degrees outside, it's a much warmer 48 degrees inside. And because it's sunny out, you'll see that temperature continue to rise throughout this video. We see even bigger temperature differences inside our low tunnels and cold frames. For example, it typically gets up into the 70s here under double cover. And even at night, it's gotten as cold as -8 degrees outside. But the coldest temperature inside this cold frame was recorded at 12 degrees Fahrenheit. And many of our plants won't survive -8. But most will survive 12 degrees. Now let's take a look at how our plants are doing. As you can see, in addition to the 2 layers of cover I always use in winter, I've also added a layer of Agribon Row cover. I do this when it gets close to 0 degrees Fahrenheit, especially if it gets that cold for a number of days in a row. And this helps a lot to keep the plants going when it's very cold. Okay, let's get this row cover off. Wow. To say I'm very pleased with how these plants are looking after 2 weeks of sub-zero temperatures. I don't see any dead plants, and plants that are drooping like this, that's just natural. They'll stand right back up when it gets warmer out. And this lettuce looks spectacular. These are Hungarian pink winter lettuce and Arctic king winter lettuce, and these plants don't appear to be stressed even. They may be even more cold hardy than our kale plants. I don't see any damage on them. Even our Swiss chard and mustard greens are still doing well, and these are 2 of our more cold sensitive plants. One thing I'm noticing that is new for us is that the soil is partially frozen in here. And the closer I get to the walking path, the more frozen it is. And this is the first time we've ever seen this in the 3 winters we've had our hoop house. Okay, now let's take a look at the other 2 beds, but before doing that I need to lose a layer. It's getting very hot in here. And to make sure I'm not letting these plants get too hot too, let's remove a layer there as well. Let's first look inside the cold frame, see how the plants are doing there. Got to remove the lid and the row cover. Looking good, looking very good. Now the first thing I noticed is that these plants may be a little bit more stressed than the ones in the low tunnel that we just looked at. Though the Starbor kale looks exceptional, the lettuce seems to be a little bit more stressed, but alive, and this will bounce right back as soon as we get warmer temperatures. If you're new to winter gardening and you see your plants drooping like this, that's nothing to be concerned about. As soon as it warms up, they'll come back to life. The Swiss chard is also drooping more here in the cold frame than in the low tunnel. So perhaps the low tunnel is getting a little more sun, or it's offering a little bit better protection. So far I'm delighted with how our plants are doing overall. January is our coldest month of the year, and if this is as bad as it gets, our winter garden is going to do great. Now let's take a look at the bed directly behind me. I expect that the plants in this bed may be struggling a little bit more because this bed doesn't get nearly as much sun because it's very close to a fence and garage and therefore doesn't get as much sun in the morning. Let's take a look. Looking pretty good. As I expected, I see more droopy plants. These Georgia collards are drooping quite a bit, but they're still alive. And these will bounce back, and these leaves can be harvested to eat. The only real problem I see in this bed is that our Swiss chard over in the corner is struggling. Some of the plants are still fine, but some look like they might be dying. And Swiss chard is not nearly as cold hardy as many other plants here. And this is probably one of the coldest areas here in the hoop house. So even after 2 weeks of very cold temperatures in late December and early January, almost all of our plants here in the hoop house are doing perfectly well. And as you can see right now, it's all the way up to 70 degrees Fahrenheit out here. And that's pretty common, even on very cold days, as long as it's sunny. I should point out that the reason I'm only showing you the hoop house today is that our other structures get much less sun and therefore they need the protection, and I don't want to open them up on a very cold day. In fact, our hinged low tunnels are currently frozen shut. But I do hope to show you everything we're growing this winter later this month in a harvest video. I just need a day that's warm enough that I can open up all the other structures. So I couldn't be happier about how the winter garden is going so far this winter, and hopefully we won't have another 2 weeks like the ones we just had. I'll be back later in the day to return the Agribon Row cover as well as to close up the low tunnels and cold frames. By the way, I think I forgot to mention earlier that I leave the Agribon on. I've left the Agribon on during this cold spell, except on sunny days like today. That's the only time it's come off. So cloudy days and at night it stays on. So I think I'll head back into the house now, and I'll see you in the next video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more videos on how to grow a lot of food on a little land without spending much or working harder than you have to.